So we have 3 officers here, 2 committee heads, and Austin. Party, okay. Well, I don't know, unfortunately, how super applicable this will be, especially to our officers, but it's a pretty short presentation. I did it for the chapter leadership conference part 2 or 1 for the district. But hopefully, even if you don't apply it to committees, you can use it for other leadership positions when you have to manage things. I need to share my screen. Okay. Can you guys see this presentation? Awesome. Okay, so this is purpose planning and executing a committee. This was done in tandem with Brooke Lee, who is our Midwest District VP of Special Projects for Tau Beta Sigma. I did not check with her to see if she was available tonight. I know the district councils have been really, really busy, so I'm going to be doing it by myself, but if you have any questions, you can always reach out to her as well. And she found this little quote that she liked to share, and it's, "Unity is strength. When there's teamwork and collaboration, wonderful things can be achieved." And that's really applicable to committee heads because you can only achieve so much as one person, and that's the whole point of having a committee. And when one person manages it all, it can typically get a little overrun, and you might be able to achieve things, but it might not be wonderful things, and that's why we have teamwork. So the contents of this presentation, I'm sorry, also if you can hear my sister and her family in the background, I am at her house and they have 2 young children. So first we're going to talk about the purpose, the why of committees. This is super beneficial. This is something that the National Council has been touching on a lot with the student leadership at the district level, is just explaining the why. I think a lot of times we don't know why we do things, and that leaves us going into things without a purpose. And if you don't have a purpose, there's pretty much no reason in doing it, because almost all your work is going to be unintentional, and we want only intentional work. We want to plan for everything. Number 2, we're going to talk about planning. What can we do to ensure our committee is working to its full potential? This is more than just coming up with ideas. This is thinking about every single person on our committee and what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, and how can we implement them to be sure not only are we getting our job done, but we are also benefiting members and we're feeding back into members. Something I talk a lot about with Kappa that's so important and so cool about this organization is we really foster leadership development, and there's so many opportunities to lead. And if we're not planning how we're going to use our committee members, we're not really giving them that chance to explore that. And number 3, we're going to talk about executing, putting it all into context and thinking outside of your regular job duties. So number 1, purpose. Committees guide chapters through smaller projects, yet they handle a large majority of chapter operations. The leader should be as close to an expert in this area as possible. So breaking down those first 2 points, sometimes we can remember that committees handle smaller projects, but we fail to remember that they usually handle a large majority of operations. And I think that's a really important note for everybody to have in the back of their mind, that it's a huge responsibility on committees to execute the things they're executing. It's usually most of what's happening in the chapter, even though it might seem minor in everybody else's eyes, it's very important altogether. And the point of the leader should be as close to an expert in that area as possible. That is obviously not always something that's attainable. A lot of times, the cool things about committee heads is that you can kind of lead something that you might have no idea about. However, if you do have somebody who has good leadership and a great knowledge base already, that's always something to take into consideration, because it will just propel the committee forward. Number 2, planning. So this is probably the most intensive slide in my whole presentation. And I meant to mention this sooner because we added some stuff in our presentation. I forgot to add it here. But if you guys have any questions, please don't hesitate to unmute and just speak out, because sometimes by the time you get to the end of a presentation, you're like, oh no, I don't have any questions now, but if you guys have something, I don't care if I bring it up later, it's totally fine just to unmute and ask. So planning, this is the most extensive slide. So if you are taking notes, get your hand ready because I'm going to talk a lot. But number one, consider giving each member of your committee a role. This is a surefire way to make sure you don't have anybody what I call bench warming, very similar to sports. You don't want anybody riding the bench. So I would go through what I did with media committee a few years ago was I went through and gave everybody a very specific job, a very specific role. They were able to pretty much do as they will with that role, but it gave them a sense of direction and it gave them a purpose, an individual purpose within the committee. This role does not have to be something huge and elaborate. Like it, obviously when you're managing social media, really that can be a one-man job. And so some of the roles we had were like a Twitter manager. So someone was just in charge of our Twitter. Someone was just in charge of our Instagram. And then we had somebody who just went through to make sure all the spell checking was correct or everything was conducive to our values. I mean, it was little jobs, but it gave everybody a job. Everybody was always accountable for doing their job. And if one person didn't do it, then the whole committee was at fault. And so it helped us all stay accountable and all of us be active. Like I said, don't leave anyone bench warming. The last thing you want to do is think like, really, we're in a red zone. We're in a bad area. Red flags are going up. If you're having a hard time remembering everybody on your committee, which can happen. So that's way in the red zone. And the orange zone is whenever you can't remember the last time someone did something on your committee. That's the orange zone, because we want to have everybody actively involved. But if people are taking a more passive role, but you can still recognize that they have been involved or they have been attentive or they have been interested in things, that's a green zone. Not everybody's going to be like super involved. Not everybody's going to be the committee head, and that's okay. But we do want to have like pretty close tabs on whether or not people are actively engaged and or whether or not people are just not even a part of the committee anymore, which can end up happening. So yeah, everybody should have an active role on their committee tailored to their experience and leadership skills. And that's something else that goes back to just think about, what are their majors? What are their skills? What are they really good at? What have they done before? How can we use that to our advantage? I had, which I'll actually save that point for the next slide because I talked about it. So number 3, executing. So this is where you put it all together. You've decided why you're doing what you're doing. You've made a plan for what you're doing. Everybody has a role, or however you decide to develop that plan. Now you've got to execute it. And this is like probably the number one way all committees fail is we have a lot of great ideas and a lot of great planning, and then we just don't follow through. And that is so normal. That is like human nature. Like I think we all just do that. Like we get super jazzed and then we just fall off the deep end. And that's so normal. But challenge yourself not to do that. Some of the ways that I would advise you not to do that is to consider doing semester check-ins with your committee. This is what I was going to hit on in the last slide. When I did a semester check-in with a committee member, they had told me that they wanted a more active role in our job because they were very overwhelmed with school and it was during quarantine and they needed a break. They needed to get out of their major, out of their schooling, and they needed to be involved in something else. And that was a great way for me to put more responsibility in that person and less responsibility on the people who were transitioning to online school and having a hard time with quarantine. So doing those semester check-ins are a really good way to just feel out how everybody's doing and make changes as necessary. Number 2, help them become aware of their own leadership styles and how they can function with those qualities. I did this at my job actually, and it was super beneficial. And we did it with the district officers, our last meeting that we had with all the nationwide district officers. And that is Strengths Finders, Clifton Strengths Finders. So you can get a free version of this test online. But I did this with the media committee, and this is one way to help them become aware of their leadership styles. And it's basically, if you haven't heard of it, for a little breakdown, it is a sort of personality test, and it gives you different areas that your personality really shines. But what it also does is it can kind of highlight some personality traits of yours that might clash with others. And that's really important, especially in teamwork roles. None of the things that your personality brings on are inherently negative, but the way that one aspect of your personality functions might clash with the way your committee heads function or the way a committee member functions. And it's good to know that and be aware of that so that way you guys can function better. Obviously, media or fundraising or music committee is not going to be the most like life or death thing that you're ever a part of in your life. It's not going to be the most pivotal and it's not going to be the most stressful, but that's a good time to kind of work on leadership development with one another. And it's a good place to fail and try some new things, especially since, maybe you have a little bit of extra downtime. If your committee has little responsibility, consider focusing time on leadership development and skill development. And that goes back to taking that Clifton StrengthsFinder test or taking time to do, maybe you come up with a workshop or even life skills. If you wanted to do something with your committee, fundraising, if you wanted to do how to balance a budget with your committee members, because maybe you don't have a lot to work on right now. Those are things that you can do. The thing about our fraternity is that we are very, everything that the members do should feed back into the band program. And we are a band fraternity and we do want to foster music and foster growth, but also it should be feeding back into you. And so if there is downtime, there's nothing wrong with not focusing solely on Kappa and focusing on something that's still relevant, but that feeds into members. And that is nothing wrong with that. And for the instance, like a fundraising committee, if you took time when you had downtime to do balancing a budget and things like that, you're just developing those skills for other committee members to potentially take the committee head position. You're just training people. So it's like a win-win. Okay, so this is our activity time. Obviously, there is not very many of us here, so we will not be doing this specifically. I was going to wait and see how many we had. Since we had some committee heads and officers, you could just do like your respective committee if you would like. I want you guys to take some time to yourself, and I might actually, do I have admin powers right now?
I don't really know is the short answer.
Okay, I'm going to stop my share for one moment. I promise I will fill you guys in. How do I get out of this? Okay. I'm sorry, guys. This is very hard for me to navigate back to. Like, where did my Zoom go? Oh, stop share. I thought that was the recording button. Guys, sorry. Rand Media Committee, not technologically. Okay, I don't think I can do breakout rooms, but I do think it would, we might be able to do something with that I think would be a little bit more beneficial than just everybody individually working.
I just made you the host, so that.
Perfect. So I'm going to assign you guys to breakout rooms, and what I want you to do, I'm going to put 3 in a room, so there'll be 2 rooms, and what I want you guys to do is dream up either the committee that you're on or the committee you're in charge of, or literally any sort of committee of your choice, maybe something within your major or something you think you might lead in your dream job, anything like that. Literally, it can be for you. It does not have to be Kappa related, but if you need something easy, you can do your committee. I want you to go ahead and figure out a purpose, a plan, and an execution, a little game plan. I want you to come up with a little game plan, a very short purpose, a very short plan, and how you're going to execute it. And then I want you guys to share that with one another, and I will be hopping around back and forth in the breakout rooms to facilitate that discussion. Trying to think if I'm telling you guys everything. Yeah, so we did this activity with Robert Bratcher, the guy who's over all of our publication and graphic design, and it was like super beneficial when we did it because we just got to kind of like brainstorm. So I'm gonna let you guys do that. I know this is just invaluable time too for committee heads to get to sit down and just think, and so we're gonna give that a try. Hopefully it sparks some inspiration. So all right, everybody's back. I am not going to go back to my presentation because it takes me 9 years to figure out screen sharing, and the last page literally has my email on it, and I'm pretty sure you all know how to contact me. So, but if you really wanted to know, it says thank you, now go out and be awesome. But before you go out and be awesome, let's talk about our activity we just did. Okay, so I'm pretty sure Curtis, Nikki, and Ava were like conspiring together on an idea. So I'd be very interested to hear what you guys as a group came up with.
Okay, what if like each one of us explained like a part of it, so we're all kind of doing like a group presentation here? I think that would be pretty good. I'll go first. This was not my idea, by the way. This is courtesy of Curtis, who came up with our actual committee name. We're going to be a dance party committee. So I'm going to talk about our purpose. Basically, our purpose is to basically plan a dance party, and then we're going to make it sort of a fundraiser to raise for a charity of our choice, and we'll talk about that in the other parts too. So, yeah.
And then the planning part is I'm trying to remember all the groups. We like chose like different groups. So there was someone like a media person to promote the dance and like let it be like known that it's out there. Like someone to deal with like the money, since it is a fundraiser, a food and drink person. And then we had, because we couldn't think of a name for like the person that like picked how everything looks. So I came up with dance architect, because that made the most sense. Was there any other ones? I remember 4. Those were the main 4.
Yeah, that's all I have written down, Nikki.
Okay, I was like, I don't remember any.
Yeah, that's all I have too. But now that I'm thinking about it, honestly, we could have had someone to do decorations too if we wanted to like really spice it up. I just thought of that off the top of my head, but you know, we don't have to have decorations. We don't have to be that.
The dance architect can do that.
The dance architect can do that. That's a lot of stuff to put on one person, but okay.
Oh my. And then for executing, we had to come up with a day and a time to have our dances, and we decided to make our dance parties weekly dance parties Friday nights from 7:30 to 10. So we're like dancing for a long time. And then charities, we weren't quite sure exactly what charities we wanted. We kind of wanted to leave that up for flexibility, as well as like how we raised money or goods for them. So we did like a canned food drive. We could let people bring in canned goods, or if we wanted to donate money to a charity, we would just charge an admission fee or something like that. We set a goal for our first dance party to raise $200 to $250. Some things we also have to consider is what our venue is going to be, where it's going to be at, and making sure that it fits like our curfew and our time. And then how to reflect on future dance parties and how to make them better.
That was very impressive for just coming up with a dance party idea. I'm very impressed. And if COVID would ever get the heck out of here, that is not a horrible idea as far as outreach goes. But so good job, guys. And then I'm pretty sure Austin and Taylor and Samante, I know for sure Samante, I think, did his over grocery shopping, since he was grocery shopping. All did something a little bit different. So if you guys want to take turns sharing some of your ideas.
Yeah, you guys took that in a very different direction than we did.
There's no right way to do this. Like I said, this is all personal development. It is okay.
Yeah, so something I've been thinking about lately is just how to inspire the chapter more and how to get people more excited, since I know it's been an especially like downtrodden year. So it's hard to be like super pumped all the time. So then when I was brainstorming, I definitely thought about giving people a why we do what we do. But I feel like that's kind of something we've like talked about before. And then Monte was talking about the reason he does Kappa and works hard is because of the people. So I was thinking about like in a relationship focused way of working on it. So like working with people one-on-one, building trust, and being able to appeal to people's individual values because the same things don't inspire everybody. And then also just considering what the obstacles might be, and helping them solve for those obstacles. I was not exactly organized into the way you guys did it, but I hope that made sense.
It made sense and definitely very applicable to your personal life, which is super important. So, Austin, would you like to go next?
Sure. So my purpose is to like just be the best instructor I can be. Like be there for my students more this semesters because it is a lot harder, I think, with everything like still kind of online but kind of in person. So I'm trying to be there emotionally for them, and even without ways, because you can't. There's only so much you can say like as a teacher in front of students. So I'm trying to take as much as I can off of their heads by like sending out email reminders for them about like, hey, we have this stuff coming up. Or at the beginning of every class, we'll spend the first 5 minutes talking about like, this is what we're going to be doing this week. This is what you'll be seeing next week. Like just to remind them so that way they don't feel like there's anything sprung on them and that they have time. Also like making sure to like call them up by name, see if they look worried and ask them to like if they have questions after class. So just like do a well-being check and see if they need anything moved. I try to be more proactive instead of you come to me, I'll come to you and maybe catch it early. And yeah.
I think that's super insightful, Austin, and I think being proactive is never a bad thing. So I hope if that's something you choose to implement that you will find some success there. Samonte, are you still grocery shopping, or do you wanna share about your grocery shopping experience?
I'm grocery shopping. What was the first one? It was planning. My purpose is I was hungry, and I planned it by writing a grocery list, and now I'm grocery shopping. So that's my execution.
Round of applause for Monte. At the most bare minimum, if you take anything away, just take Samonte's scenario. It'll get you through everything. Okay. So just a little wrap up. I hope with our little exercise that we had that purpose, plan, and execute is like drilled into your head now. But if it's not, just remember, be intentional, be prepared, and follow through with your ideas, because we all have really good ideas, and really good ideas deserve to hit the ground running. So don't forget to follow through. Do any of you guys have questions about anything whatsoever related to committee operations? This can be outside of what we talked about too, just general committee operation questions. No? It's okay if it's a no. I never have questions after Zoom presentations, ever. Well, if you guys think of a question, I'm not going to give you my email because I'm pretty sure we're all Facebook friends. So you guys can just Facebook message me or get a hold of me in Snapchat, whatever form you find necessary. But please do reach out to me with these questions. Like, I have loved talking about committee operations. It's pretty much the only thing I feel like I have to bring to the district. So I love to talk about it. So if you guys have any questions, or if you have members on your committee that are interested in being a committee head and could use a little crash course on it, you can also send them my way. Please tell them that I'm nice. I don't bite because I like talking about stuff. But thank you guys so much for coming and sitting in. I didn't know if we were going to have a big turnout, and this was better than what I thought it was going to be. So thank you so much for coming. And you guys are welcome to stick around and talk to me. But you're free to go too. So we're all done.